Welcome to the Royal Economic Society's annual conference here at the University of Bristol. I'm here with Teodora Boneva, who's here to talk about her work on how parents' investments matter for their children. Thanks very much for being here. So, normally when we think about investment, we think about businessmen investing in machines, but you're here to talk about parents investing in their children.
As we know from previous research, the skills that children accumulate early in life, they're very important for later life outcomes, such as educational attainment, earnings, or also health. And one key question is what determines these skills? And one key component is, of course, how much parents invest into their children. So the more parents invest into their children, the more skills children are also going to accumulate as a result.
And that's things like reading to their children,
yes.
Doing their homework with them.
So these are things exactly like interacting with your child. For example, when the child is young, these might be things like going to the playground together with your child, teaching your child important skills such as how to read or write. And then later when the kids become older, it might be things like helping them with job applications or helping them with things that matter later on, yes.
So you're here to talk about your paper, Human Capital Production and Parental Beliefs, with Christopher Rao.
Yes.
So what specific question were you trying to answer in that?
So one question that we were particularly interested in is what drives parental investment decisions? So why is it that some parents choose to invest very little in their child, both in terms of financial resources, also in terms of time, while other parents really invest a lot of financial resources, a lot of time into their children?
Which parents do more or less? Can you say which types of parents?
So something that we found, and this is actually this has been done by previous work, not just by us, but something that has been well documented is that there are large socioeconomic differences in parental investments. So it really seems to be that better educated parents, wealthier parents, they are the ones who do not just invest more financial resources into their children, but actually also spend more time with their kids, which is actually particularly surprising given that they are the parents who work more and therefore have less time available. So I guess this is really what motivated our research question. Given that we can observe these socioeconomic differences in parental investments, what is driving these differences? Why is it that some parents invest more than others? Is there anything we can say about that?
So how did you go about answering those questions?
So one thing that we were particularly interested in is, could it be that what drives these differences is differences in parental beliefs about the returns to parental investments? So the idea here is basically that if you think that what you do doesn't matter at all, then, so that means if you perceive the returns to be low, then maybe you're being less inclined to engage in these activities. Whereas if you think that the things that you do really matter a lot for your child's outcomes later on, then maybe you will be more prone to actually engage into these activities with your child. So we wanted to measure these beliefs, and we wanted to see how they relate to actual investment decisions.
So the idea is that if I don't think that reading to my child will help them at all,
exactly.
why should I
bother? I could just watch TV or meet my friends or do something else. Exactly.
So how do you measure those beliefs to
Right.
the returns to reading?
Yes, exactly. So something that we do is we use a method which relies on using hypothetical investment scenarios. As a parent, you take part in a survey and you are presented with different scenarios. And so, for example, a scenario might be, so there is a hypothetical family, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and they have a child, let's call him John. And then Mr. and Mrs. Jones can decide how much time to spend helping John with his schoolwork every week. And then you can see different scenarios. So in one scenario, they decide to help John 1 hour every week. Whereas in another scenario, they decide to help John, say, 4 hours every week. So we vary the amount of investments across the scenarios. And then we ask, okay, given this scenario, just imagine this was happening, what do you think could the likely outcomes of the scenario be, for example, in terms of earning of the child at age 30 or something like this? And then if you compare parents' responses across these different scenarios, you can say something about whether they think it actually matters or it doesn't.
And what did you find?
So the main result from our analysis is that parents differ a great deal on how they perceive the returns to parental investments. So while there are some parents who really think that parental investments matter a lot, there are other parents who think that parental investments play little to no role. And interestingly, we find that these parental beliefs, they also correlate strongly with parental investments. So parents who perceive the returns to be higher are also the ones who are investing more. And in addition, we also found that there are large socioeconomic differences in parental beliefs about these returns. So while parents of high socioeconomic status perceive the returns to be high, parents of low socioeconomic status are more inclined to believe that parental investments don't actually play such a big role. And this finding is, I think, very relevant and important because it sheds some light on this question of why we might see these differences in parental investments across families of different socioeconomic status.
So is there any evidence that there are actually different returns to investing in your children between richer or poorer parents?
So I think that's a very good and a very important question. So in fact, we used data from the British cohort study and we estimated returns separately for poor parents and for rich parents. And what we found is that the returns to parental investments are actually indistinguishable across these two groups. So if you're a poor parent and you read to your child, that pays off just as much than if you're a rich parent and you read to your child.
So even though there's no evidence that the returns to these investments
are different, we do find these differences in beliefs,
So what should policymakers do about this?
So I think this is a very important and relevant question. One thing we should focus on is trying to understand where these beliefs come from. And is there something we can do to inform people and so that they can maybe update their beliefs. And one step forward could be to, for example, do an intervention or design a program that makes parents more aware of the fact that children's skills are something malleable, that they as parents can actually affect and influence quite a lot. And in other work that I have done with Shule and Alan and Seda AirTouch, we can show that an intervention in the school environment that targets children's beliefs about the productivity of their effort is actually very successful in raising children's effort levels. And not just that, but we can also see that it actually increased their achievements. So they have higher test scores, both in language as well as in math. And so really these interventions that kind of try to affect people's beliefs, they can be very powerful, I think. And we have shown that it works in the school environment, so maybe we can also show that it works in the home environment.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.